Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. So I'm Dr. Cliff Smyth. I'm a Saybrook faculty member, and I have also taught the Feldenkrais Method of somatic education for over 32 years now. So that was kind of my main practice that got me into mind-body medicine. So practice in this case means private practice, doing hands-on Feldenkrais work with people and also classes. And I still teach a class a week. And we also include Feldenkrais quite a bit in our movement modalities for wellness class at Saybrook. So what we'll do today is I'll do a brief introduction, very brief, and then we'll do two movement and awareness activities, one in sitting and one in standing. And just to say that they really involve light, easy movements, using the smallest effort. I'll remind you to go easy, not do anything that hurts, make the movements really simple, all of that. And then really the lessons are designed to be accessible and kind of adaptable for everybody. So really, and if there's anything that isn't clear in the teaching, then do pop a little note in the chat and I can respond to that. So I thought what I'd do is just show like 4 slides to begin, just to orient and really talk about Feldenkrais a little bit in the context of mindfulness. So I'm just going to go and find share screen. There it is. And we're going to do that one. Good. Are people seeing that? Great. Good. So this is our topic today. This is the day. So Feldenkrais method can be seen, as a form of somatic education. Soma meaning, as in this definition here from Thomas Hanna, as the field of study and practice that are about the perception of the body from within, about your first person living experience. So with a focus on how we feel ourselves as bodily, as embodied, that our sense of ourselves and the perception of the world and the basis of our thinking are all embodied. They have to be, which contrast is revolutionary in terms of the culture that emphasizes thought, going back to Descartes, and even in studies of emotion and whatever, the cognitive component is often in the foreground. And then more recently, there's a framework come forward, especially from neuroscientists wanting to study mindfulness and movement, or mindful movement, is this concept of mindful movement, or movement-based embodied contemplative practices, things like Feldenkrais and Alexander technique from the Western tradition, and Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga from Eastern traditions. And there's many similarities. There's probably a lot of similar mechanisms or modes of action, and there's really also a lot of differences. So, and if you've done any of those other practices, which probably many of you have, then you'll notice some of the differences. So Feldenkrais really is named after somebody called Moshe Feldenkrais, who developed the method. He lived from 1904 to 1984. And he was really interested in self-observation and action, right? How can we observe ourselves while doing things as we need to in order to develop our awareness and also to improve our action or function? So he called the class method awareness through movement. So it's not just movement awareness, although there's a lot of that in it. It's also about developing awareness as we move. So it's about listening to the body, what it needs, and also evoking new possibilities. And through improving sensation and our coordination to improve our movement. So it has both a functional and an awareness component. So if we think about this idea of developing awareness, how does Feldenkrais fit within mindfulness? So in a way, developing awareness of bodily experience is really foundational. In fact, the first foundation of mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition is awareness of the body, or mindfulness of the body. And lots of new meditators and lots of meditation teachers, talk about how hard it is to become aware of the body, that it's not supported in the culture. People often have histories of trauma, of pain, have current pain. So there can be body image issues. So there can be a lot of stuff around feeling the body or not feeling the body. There can be a lot of judgment. And today I'm going to invite you to be very non-judgmental. And then because we're doing movement, it can provide a rich source of sensation for people to attend to and to learn from. So some people really have quite a lot of trouble just attending to the breath, although that involves movement. It's significant that the breath is a major focus of meditation practices, also involves movement in the body and this constantly changing, flowing experience. So movement can be really useful for some people for whom still meditation and focusing on mental phenomena can be really a challenge. People can become really deeply absorbed in their own bodily and movement experience. In Pali, the Buddha's language, mindfulness is citta, and some Buddhist scholars say that it has not, we often focus on present moment attention, taking the definition from John Kabat-Zinn. But in fact, some Buddhist scholars say it also has roots in remembering. So there's a way in which, by getting in touch with the body, we can remember our bodily experience and our potential for bodily experience, and maybe aspects of our bodily experience that have been shifted through being alive and being in a culture and all of that. So I think there's this idea of remembering, of putting back together the bodily experience. And Feldenkrais also, as a method, accesses some of those important but subtle and often not attended to parts of our experience, not the exteroception so much as the proprioception, where the body is in space, and interoception, how we feel inside, kinesthesia, the felt sense of movement, and the tactile haptic, touching the world. So we direct attention, for example, to effort, which we feel can encourage people to not strive and to notice subtle changes in movement patterns. Or also quite unique to Feldenkrais is a big emphasis on skeletal awareness. And we feel like awareness of the skeleton can help a lot with dealing with gravity and the possibility of feeling light and strong. Through the lessons, there's a lot of shifting of focus of attention. So the ability to focus, to shift it, to expand the scope of what we're feeling, maybe to hold several sensations together in one gestalt. And then in the process, we can discover some of our habits of movement and attention. And then final thing that meditators often talk about is how do you take the awareness of still meditation, of seated meditation off the cushion and into the world. And Feldenkrais, with its focus on awareness and attention while moving, I think is part of an answer to that we can influence people's voluntary functions, how they move through the world, as well as the autonomic functions in the mood and self-awareness that other mindfulness practices also address. But there's this awareness in action that's important in Feldenkrais and other mindful movement practices as well. So that's really all I wanted to say there. And then I thought we should get on and do some movement, if that's okay with you folks. Good. All right. So we're going to do 2 lessons. And I will remind you lots of times about going lightly, going easily, not doing anything that hurts. Really, the movements, it's really not about strengthening and stretching, but really about using the movements to feel comfortable, to move more easily, and to develop awareness. So come and sit in a way where you feel really supported. So you might, to begin, Sit back in the chair if you want, or come and sit at the front edge and have your feet on the floor. Feldenkrais is very often done in lying down, because not knowing who is going to come today, and so therefore not being able to prepare them necessarily, we're going to do stuff in sitting and standing. So, and just make sure that if you're sitting back, your back is supported, the spine is long. It doesn't have to be straight. The spine has natural curves. Or if you sit forward, the same thing, inviting a sense of length in the spine, a sense of support from the floor, from the sitting bones. And maybe a possibility of your head being balanced on the top of your spine. And you can rest from moving and a rest from attending anytime. So just go easy with yourself. So let's bring your attention to the experience of breathing. So how do you notice the experience of breathing right now? What comes to your attention? What do you notice? And sometimes, you may close your eyes as part of going inward in your attention. So your interoception and your proprioception. What do you notice about the experience of breathing right now? What's at the forefront? Knowing that, as you attend to the breath, or as you rest a bit more, the breath might change, even breath to breath. And just noticing, is there any sensation, the physical air coming, going at the nostrils or the mouth or the throat? Maybe even into the lungs. And then what kind of movements can you notice in the body? What's prominent in the body? In the chest, in the abdomen. And for a few breaths, just bring your attention to that movement of the air, the physical air coming and going at the nostrils or the mouth, the throat. And in Feldenkrais, we really believe there's no correct way of breathing. There's different breaths for different functions. We breathe differently when we're eating or swimming or sleeping. So using your nose and your mouth in any combination that is comfortable for you as you breathe. Noticing that coming and going of the breath, of the physical air. That's good. And then switching your attention to the movements of breathing in the body. So you might notice the chest, bringing your attention to the front of the chest, the ribs and the breastbone. But also then to the sides of the chest, from the armpits to the lower ribs, from the lower ribs to the armpits, left and right. And then is there any sensation of the movement backward, perhaps in the chest, maybe at the lower ribs? Often it's easiest to feel movement there, or up between the shoulder blades. And on the one hand, the spine is more toward the back of the torso, so you've got those big bones there that might affect the movement with breathing. But the diaphragm attaches to the spine, and the lungs are more in the back of the chest, so the movement backward might be possible, and we'll explore that. Good. And then bring your attention to your abdomen. What movements do you feel of the breath in the abdomen? That's good. You might feel in the front, above and below the navel, above the pubic bone. You might feel the breath to the side and noticing how the breath might change. And then again, is there any movement backward into the lower back, above the top of the pelvis? And then the pelvis itself, the sacrum there, that wedge-shaped bone, the base of the spine between the wings of the pelvis, the iliac crests, and maybe even down into the pelvic floor between the sits bones. And as one breathes in, sometimes the pelvic floor lowers a little bit with the intra-abdominal pressure, especially if you were lying down. In sitting, sometimes there's a little lifting in the pelvic floor as a response to maintain that pressure in the abdomen, protect the organs. And, just bringing your attention somewhere and learning how to shift the attention. So if you can't feel something somewhere, if it's not comfortable, that's okay. Good. And then coming up to the top of your torso, sensing for any movement of the breath up under the collarbones, into the armpits, up into the upper spine. And just remembering now, as we proceed, and we'll be starting to make some movements now, just remember to go small and slow, not nearly as big as you can, with the lightest movement and slowly, and don't do anything that's not comfortable for you, and pause and rest anytime you want to. So if you've been sitting forward and you feel the need to sit back for a moment and rest your attention and make some movements, right? When we've been doing still activities, and sometimes the rest is in movement. Right. Good. Okay. And then sitting back with a long spine or coming to sit forward. Good. And think now of expanding the chest as you breathe in. Taking a 10, 20% larger breath, a generous but very comfortable breath. And notice what happens as you take the larger breath in the chest and in the abdomen. And then particularly noticing what happens in the chest. Is the movement forward and up a little bit with the breastbone and the ribs? Making 4 or 5 slightly larger breaths and then breathing normally. Good. And then find out, would it be possible to breathe a little more in all directions? Could you imagine breathing so that the front of the chest comes forward a little bit, but there's some little movement backward? If you're leaning against the chair, you might feel some movement. Invite some movement backward in the spine and the ribs, between the shoulder blades. And sometimes, paradoxically, if you think of breathing more sideways into the ribs on the left and the right, sometimes that can help you feel some movement backward with breathing into the chest. Or maybe you change something a little bit in not lifting the chest so much and finding out, can you inflate the chest a little bit in all directions? Good, good. And resting your attention, resting your body, making any movements you'd like to make and resting for a moment. Good. And then coming back to this idea of breathing in all directions. And actually, let's do something else first. Let's bring your hands together and interlace your fingers. There we go. That's good. And just notice how your fingers are interlaced. All right. And now switch your fingers over so there's a different pinky on the bottom, a different index finger on top, and a different thumb on top. And for some people, that might feel quite weird. It shows that sometimes we have habits that we don't know that we have. So, and then a few times now, go backwards and forwards between your usual interlacing and your new interlacing. And see if slowly, as you go backwards and forwards now, softening the hands and breathing, and bring lots of attention into your hands, could it start to become more familiar and more comfortable interlacing your fingers in this non-habitual way? There we go. Good. And now start to go backwards and forwards, interlacing the fingers in the usual way and sliding them apart, and then interlacing them in the non-habitual way and sliding them apart and letting the wrists bend and the elbows come out to the side and come down, and making this kind of gesture with your hands, breathing. And now reduce the work in your hands and your shoulders and your breathing, and make it light and easy and comfortable, and softening your hands. That's good. Good. Rest your arms for a moment. And now bring your hands to your lower ribs. So the heels of the hands are towards the side, and the palm of the hand and the fingers are wrapping around, and just feeling the breathing in the lower ribs. We have a huge amount of sensory neurons in our hands, so we can use them to help us guide our movement and sense our movement. And again, thinking of breathing sideways, but also forward and back. Maybe there needs to be a little adjustment in where the spine is or the head is to allow you to breathe in all directions. And of course, you could use your hands softly to feel other parts of the chest or the abdomen as you wanted to. I can see some of you are experimenting. That is just great. Good. And leave that and have a rest for a moment. Come sit forward again, feeling supported. Good. And bring your hands to the front of your abdomen again. Just kind of really bring your hands so as much as possible the surface of your hands and the pillows of your fingers are resting on your abdomen. And as you breathe out now, just draw in the abdomen a little bit as you breathe out, pulling in the abdomen sensitively without any strain. Breathing out and contracting the abdomen or firming the abdomen. And usually we can feel more of the muscles in the front of the abdomen as we do this. You make maybe 5 slightly larger breaths and breathing out and drawing in the abdomen, firming the abdomen. But you might also notice is there some drawing in from the sides and even the back as you breathe out and contract the abdomen. Maybe there's some drawing up of the pelvic floor. And how does your chest respond? Does your chest lift and come forward a little bit? Or maybe it flattens a little bit and the breastbone slides down a little bit. Just notice and feel. Breathing out, contracting the abdomen a few times. And with your hands, you might feel there's one side of your abdomen contract more strongly or more quickly. And sometimes our abdomens have histories of surgeries and things that affect the function. So really proceeding without judgment. Good. And rest your hands a moment. Rest from the special attending. Make any little movements you like to make. Maybe nod the head a little bit, turn the head a little bit. There we go. Good. And bring your hands again back to your abdomen. Breathing out, contracting the abdomen, and you might try both of these things. So first you might try contracting the abdomen and expanding the chest a little bit, having some movements in the breastbone and the ribs and the spine. Maybe the chest lifts. And in Feldenkrais, we're asking you to explore things. So sometimes maybe it's hard to find. That's okay. Sometimes we say, if you can't feel it, fake it. So contract the abdomen, imagine the chest expanding and lifting, and find out. Maybe your nervous system knows what to do, even if you don't consciously, right? We're using both consciousness and the power of the nervous system itself. Mostly the nervous system works on tasks rather than consciousness. Good. And leave that for a moment. And then a few times entertain the possibility of breathing out, drawing the abdomen and flattening the chest a little bit. Maybe the shape of the spine changes a little bit. Slightly larger, comfortable breath in and activating the abdomen and breathing out and imagining that the chest could flatten, the breastbone could slide down a little bit. Good. And leave that be and rest. Good. And sit back and rest a moment. Make some movements. So, as I was saying, Feldenkrais didn't think there was a right way of breathing. So he was interested in how we could improve the functional apparatus. So if we think of the breathing container as an 8-sided box with 2 planes on the front, the chest and the abdomen, 2 at the back, the chest and the abdomen, 2 at the sides, and then the bottom and the top that we explored at the beginning. So we can make little movements and explorations and awarenesses to adjust how that apparatus works without necessarily saying this is the correct way to breathe. Good. So come sit forward again a moment. Thinking of the spine long, the feet on the floor, or the legs on the floor if you're kneeling. That's good. Good. So now, since we've been working hard, let's see if we can get some more softening in the chest, or we may have been working hard, hopefully working softly. So I invite you to breathe in a number of sips. So you take a little bit of air in and pause and stop the breath without doing a lot of work, and then breathe in and take in the air with a number of sips, and then hold it for however moments is really comfortable. Don't strain, and then breathe out with a sigh. So it's kind of like and you can make a sighing noise if that helps. So doing that a few times, 3 times, 5 times, 6 times, taking in the air in sips. How does the chest and the abdomen work? And then letting the air out. What changes in your spine, your ribs? And then resting from that. Good. So what about the spine? So if it's comfortable for you, bring your attention to your sits bones, and a few times now, just begin to lower your head a little bit and roll back on toward the back of the sits bones, the ischial tuberosities, just a little bit, so that you invite the whole spine to get involved. Don't do anything that's painful or uncomfortable. And then rolling the pelvis forward a little bit toward the front of the sits bones, the pubic bone in the front rolls a little bit toward the chair, and your spine might change shape a little bit, and you might look up a little bit without any strain in the neck. So you're really using the whole spine just to rock on the sitting bones. The feet and the legs can help you a little bit. And the spine arches a little bit very comfortably and rounds a little bit very comfortably. Go very slowly, reduce the effort, make it simpler. You don't have to look up high. Don't go anywhere near the end of your range in either direction. Good. And resting. There's a psychophysical reason why we emphasize not using a lot of effort. Yeah, make any movements you want to be comfortable. So Fechner and Weber were early German psychophysiologists, and they discovered that we have thresholds for the perception of effort. And when we use less effort, we can have more sensitivity to how much effort we're using. So if we want to change our patterns of how we start movements, we want to start small and see if we can influence those patterns of movement. Now, exercise, being strong, moving the fascia, all of that has its place. At the same time, going light and easy can also help us change how we make movements. And there's even some science to support it from way back from the 1830s or something. Good. So now bring one arm across and hold on to the shoulder blade or the upper arm, but not the top of the shoulder, on the other side, and then bring the other arm across and bring your soft hands and just hug yourself and let the arms hang down on the chest. There we go. Good. And ideally, you'd have one whole arm closer to your head and one whole arm closer to your pelvis. So rather than crossing the forearms, there you go. And then just bring your hands on like this saran wrap. That's good. And the elbows can be both forward if that's comfortable, or you can have them further apart. You can also have the arms a little lower down and hold on to the ribs, whatever's comfortable for you. And a few times just begin to turn to the right. Take the elbows and the head, and remembering not to go as far as you can go or as fast. And just go to the right first and back to the middle. That's it. Go light and easy. Make it pleasurable. That's good. Make sure you're breathing. There we go. That's good. And as you go to the right, what happens with the left thigh? You might imagine the left thigh lengthening and the left knee pushing forward a little bit. The weight might shift on the sits bones. That's good. Don't do anything that's uncomfortable on your shoulders. You could have the arms down lower if you wanted to be more comfortable. There you go. As long as you're keeping the arms moving with the shoulders and the head and the eyes, that's good. Now, a couple of times going to the right, but turning your head very gently to the left. There we go. Taking your shoulders and arms to the right and the head to the left. And how do you breathe? And then you might take your head the same way and then take your head opposite. There we go. Just go very gently. There we go. Good. And slide your arms down and rest. What's happening with your breathing? Good. And then bring the other arm across first and hold on to the upper arm or shoulder blade. If it's comfortable, don't do anything that hurts your shoulders, your arms. There we go. Sometimes it's a bit of a puzzle. Sometimes there's some puzzles, like with the hands. There we go. And go to the left now a few times. Shifting the weight on the sits bones. Where does the weight go on the sits bones? Which knee could push forward a little bit? Which thigh could kind of lengthen a little bit? Good. And then a few times lightly turn your head opposite. Notice if you put your foot on the gas when you're turning one part one way and one the other. Sometimes we solve movement puzzles through more work. See if you can solve this with less work, more comfort, more breathing. Don't do anything that hurts. There we go. That's good. There we go. Good. And then go side to side, turning the head with the arms and shoulders a few times. See, can the hands help? Can the left hand help bring your right shoulder to the left? And can the right hand help bring your left shoulder to the right? And then a few times, very lightly, turn your head opposite your shoulders and arms. Very light, very gentle. Don't go nearly as far as you can go. Make it super comfortable. Good. And slide your arms down and rest. Sit back and rest if you care to. There we go. Good. Good. Make any little movements you need to be comfortable with your head, with your neck, with all of you. You might rock a little bit on your sits bones again. Good. Good. So pause a moment now and just notice your breathing. What comes to your attention? The air coming and going, the movements in the chest and in the abdomen. And a few times take a slightly larger breath in. And feel, is it possible to do that in all directions, to expand in all directions now in the abdomen and the chest? Softly. What's the shape of your spine? Is there any movement in your spine as you breathe now? Could you organize your spine in such a way that you could breathe forward and backwards and sideways a little bit? That's good. And so now I invite you to take a slightly larger breath in through the nose, and then, take a slightly larger breath in sips, and then let it out like we did before. And then let's switch that out now and take one larger breath in and hold it for a moment, and then breathing out in sips, stopping the breath without a lot of force until you get as much air out as you can, and you can comfortably, and pause a moment and then let the air back in through your mouth. So you take a larger breath in. Oh, I'm sorry. You take a larger breath in and then you let it out in sips. What the abdomen and the chest do. Leave the breath out. And then when you're ready, let the breath back in. Feeling what happens in those lower ribs, inviting a sense of springiness. Good. Take a larger breath in if it's comfortable. Breathing out in sips. Pausing. Even when we've breathed out a lot, there's still over a pint of air in our lungs. And then breathing in when you want to. And then maybe one more time. Taking a large breath in. Breathing out in sips. Like blowing bubbles. Pause for as long as you care to, as long as it's comfortable, as long as there's no anxiety, and then letting the air come back in. Good. There we go. And that's our first lesson, just noticing how you feel, noticing your breathing, your mood, sense of your body. And then I would propose that we go on and do another simple, shorter lesson in standing, and then we can always chat at the end if we need to. But Might be nice to just do a little bit with a little bit more movement in standing, but I invite you first to walk around a little bit, feel how you feel in walking. Take a very quick bio break if you really need to. That's great. Good. Good. And then come and stand somewhere where you can touch something, a desk, a back of a chair, just in case your balance is a little challenged. The back of the sofa, the fireplace, that's good. And kick off your shoes if that's at all comfortable, and feel your feet on the floor. And right away, as you're standing, notice where your gaze rests. So even if you go inside for a few moments for introspection, sensing into yourself, quite a bit of the time in this lesson will be good to have your eyes open. So right now, where does the gaze rest? And you know, our balance mechanisms very much rely on the sense of the haptic sense from the feet, the pressure on the floor, the proprioception, the sensation in the joints, the vestibular apparatus of the inner ear and the eyes, and our nervous system integrates all that information. So coming to stand where you could touch something if your balance is challenged. So maybe the back of the sofa or something like that. Yeah, or a table or a wall. That's good. Good. And have your knees unlocked, not too bent, not pushed back and locked, just right. That's good. And notice the distance between your feet. And just notice, often we sense our standing and our balance by making some little movements side to side, right? So if you bring your attention to your feet, and for example, if you wanted to sense if you had more weight on one foot or the other, notice how you do that. That's good. Good. And do that now. Have your feet a little wider apart and just notice the balance there. Maybe if you try and shift your weight a little bit, it's a little harder. You might be very stable, but good. And then if it's safe and comfortable with your eyes open, bring your feet and legs closer together and see what happens with your breathing. Right? Do you wobble a little bit? Sometimes we bring our arms out a little bit. We think our shoulders are for moving our arms, for manipulating things, but they're really great for balance. Good. And then have your feet a nice distance apart, a comfortable distance apart. There we go. And just feeling how you feel. Do you feel tall or short, light or heavy? What's the overall sense of standing? That's good. Good. There we go. You can even make movements like you're walking in place. Good. And then just standing quietly now, so you can really attend to the weight on your feet and noticing whether there's more weight on one foot or the other. And if you're not so sure, you might think about taking a step. If you took a step, which foot would you stand on? Which foot would you bring forward? All right. And then if you do the opposite, how does that feel? So you might realize you have a habit of which foot you step off with too. Right. There we go. Good. Good. Coming back and feeling the weight on the feet, comparing the 2 feet. So where's the weight on the heel and the side and the ball of your left foot? Do the toes touch? And then where's the weight on the heel and the side and the ball and the toes of the right foot? And you might also notice that without you intending to, sometimes we make these little wobbling movements, right? And that is actually the nervous system spontaneously generating some movement to help us feel where we are in space. Why do soldiers in line fall down, right? It's always said, oh, they're fatigued or whatever, but often they're trying to stand so still that the nervous system has no information about where they are. So those little movements that we make spontaneously are part of our balance mechanism. All right. So which foot feels a little more solidly on the floor? Do you feel a little more heavily on? And of course, you can guess. If it's hard to tell, you can guess. And just a few times, move your weight to one foot a little bit more, shifting your weight. And you might notice how you do this. Does the whole body lean? Right? Or is there some movement laterally with the pelvis, with the ribs? And of course, are you breathing? And make sure that your eyes are somewhere to keep your balance, and pretty much move just directly sideways rather than turning. We'll do some turning soon. Just moving sideways, good. And now can you bring yourself comfortably to stand on that foot and just lift up the heel of the other foot, bend the knee, and have the ball and the toes of the other foot on the floor. And notice how it is to kind of balance in this way. That's good. Breathing. What work is there in the ankle and the knee, the neck? That's good. Good. And do that a couple of times. Shift the weight to this foot, lift the other heel, and find out how you do it. Especially noticing your balance, using your eyes resting somewhere. That's good. Good. Pause a moment. And now a few times shift the weight to the other foot. Notice also what you're doing with your arms, how your arms can do their job to help you balance. It's fine. It's great. It's the sign of an intelligent nervous system. There we go. Good. So now if you can, if you're comfortable, remembering standing where you could touch something. And shift your weight to the other foot if it feels comfortable. Breathing, have your eyes open so you can see somewhere on the horizon. Bring lots of presence into that foot, and then lift the other heel by bending the knee. There you go. And have your weight more on the toes and the ball of the other foot. That's great. Good. Leave that be. Rest on both. You're standing, and then have a little walk around. Have a little walk around, noticing how you walk. And even in walking now, you might notice, do you land a little more heavily on one foot? Does your head tilt more to one side or the other? And in everyday life, these differences might make no difference at all. If you had an injury or you're a high-level athlete or whatever, they might make a difference. So the awareness is useful in itself. It's fun to know oneself, and it can also be very useful in performance and rehabilitation, which are two of the things we use Feldenkrais for a lot. Good. So come and stand now where you can touch something if you're balanced. That's good. Good. Come somewhere where you can touch something. And bring your right hand and touch the outside of your right thigh. And really, again, have that nice, caring, full touch of the hand. Reduce the work in the hand, reduce the work in your arm, reduce the work in your breathing. And just to start to slide the hand down like you're really interested in the temperature and the shape. And look now at your right hand as it goes down. And then as you come back up to stand, right, come and stand tall. And can you see, what strategy do you have to do this? Do you bend mostly sideways? That's one option. There we go. Or what would happen if you bent your knee a little bit forward and you looked at the hand as it starts to go down toward the knee? Aha. How can the other foot help you stand? Can you breathe? Good. And I invite you now to bend a little forward in the hips and let the knees bend as you slide the hand down, being very interested in the quality of the touch, looking at the hand because you're bending down as if you're interested in the hand, and then come and look at the horizon and stand tall. As you come back up, look to the front. That's it. Good. There we go. And are you breathing? No, that's right. Because often we hold our breath when our balance is challenged. Good. So pause and rest a moment. All right. These are the benefits of awareness. A few days ago, I was in the local cake shop and the woman had vertigo, and I brought to her attention these. Okay, if your vestibular apparatus are causing you problems, then be aware of where you're looking and sensing your feet. And we ordered a cake, and then she sent us a little email saying, "Oh, that was so helpful. It really helped me get through the rest of the day." Okay, bring your left hand to the outside of your left thigh. That's good. Really take an interest in the shape and temperature of the thigh, and then look at the hand and start to slide the hand down toward the knee. Maybe it goes beyond the knee, and then come back up. And notice now, is your main strategy bending sideways? Or could you also bend a little forward and bend at the ankle and the knee and the hip? There we go. And breathe and really find out how the eyes can help you, right? It's probably helpful for them to see the floor right now. There we go. That's good. And see, can you bend the knee a little forward? Maybe the other knee has to bend too. There we go. Good. And come and stand and feel how standing feels. Sensing the weight on both feet. That's good. The insides and the outsides of the feet, the front and the back. Good. And then start to shift your weight a little bit side to side. There we go. That's good. There we go. And can you shift directly side to side now without turning? There we go. Good. All right. Pause a moment now. And now I invite you to remember to go very small and very slow. Bring both your hands to the backs of your thighs. Have your knees bent. That's good. There we go. And it's good. And just start to bend at the ankles and the knees and slide the hands down the back of the thighs and look down a little between your feet. That's good. And then slide the hands back up using the quality of the touch and the breathing. That's it. Good. So how can both legs work for you? Feeling the bend in both ankles, both knees, both hips, and then how they can unbend and lift you up like a scissor lift. There we go. That's right. And the spine can get long and tall. That's it. And can your breathing help you use your eyes to help you looking between your feet and then feeling can you press with each leg? You don't have to look up and back, just look up to the horizon and using the touch and the breathing and the eyes to help you and listening to the bending and unbending in your ankles. Looking down now, looking down, looking down. That's it. And your knees and your hips and your spine also bends a little bit and unbends a little bit. And it's a whole body movement. There we go. Good. Coming and standing a moment, looking at the horizon, feeling the weight on your feet. Good. And just feel the weight on each foot a little bit. How is it on each foot? Has anything changed? So often people do physical activities and they don't notice the difference that it made. One of the most important things is to do something and notice, has it had an effect? Good. And shifting your weight a little side to side now as you stand without turning, just directly side to side. That's it. There we go. Good. And just one or two more last times, shift your weight to one foot and lift the other heel. Breathing, using your eyes, using your arms a little bit if you want to. Standing tall. That's it. There you go. How is it to stand on this foot? And then switch over now. Bring all your presence and a lot of weight onto the other foot and lift the other heel. And how is it now to stand on this foot, which might have been your second choice before? Aha. Can you breathe? Can you balance? Can you use your eyes? There we go. Good. And then leave that, shift your weight side to side a couple more times. There we go. And go and walk and feel how walking feels now. Now, do you feel in walking? Sensing your whole body, sensing how your feet strike the floor. How tall or short do you feel as you walk? How heavy or light? That's good. What's your overall mood? That's good. Good. And come on back and stand a moment. One more time. Sense standing, your feet, your pelvis above your feet, your head above your pelvis and feet. You're breathing. Good. And that's our second lesson for today. Standing and balance and stuff. And I will leave the lessons there. And anybody on the recording, I invite you to remember those principles that we're thinking about, the relationship between movement and awareness, and go slowly, go safely, go without judgment, go with not causing any pain, and great